Slow down for a second and really listen. This is not your imagination. This is not random, and it is not happening for no reason. Lately, something has been pulling at your chest when everything around you looks calm. A memory comes in fast. A face appears in your mind without warning. A strange pressure rises in the quiet parts of your day, and no matter how hard you try to shake it off, it returns. Stay with me, because this feeling matters. What if the silence is not empty at all? What if something is moving behind the scenes, even now? What if the person you have been trying to release is standing at the edge of a truth they can no longer escape? Listen carefully, because this message may explain what your heart has already started to notice before your mind could find the words. Something is shifting. The distance is no longer doing what it used to do. The walls are not holding the same way. And the next step in this story may come from the one who once stayed quiet the longest. If that has been heavy on your heart, keep watching, because what comes next will go deeper than surface thoughts and easy answers. Your deeper self has already felt the change before your logic had a chance to catch up. You may have noticed this in small moments first. A sudden tightness in your chest. A wave of emotion that came from nowhere. A restless energy under your normal routine. Like something unspoken is moving just beneath the surface of your day. That feeling is not meaningless. It is a signal. Your inner self often sees the change before the outside world shows any proof. That is why you can sense a shift with this person before any message arrives, before any call appears, before any clear action has been taken. There is a silent language beneath words, and your soul hears it long before the mind can explain it. This is usually how change begins. First, there is pressure. Then there is movement. Then what was hidden starts coming into view. Right now, that pressure is building. Openings are forming where there used to be only silence. Space is changing shape. What looked finished may not have been finished at all. Your place in this person's heart did not disappear the way fear told you it did. While you were carrying your own questions, while you were trying to make peace with uncertainty, something was also happening inside them. The walls they built from pride, fear, and the need to stay in control have been getting weaker. The emotions they pushed down are not staying buried anymore, and the truth they tried to outrun is rising to the surface with more strength than before. To understand why this is happening now, you have to look at what they were living through in the silence between you. From the outside, they may have seemed fine, calm, busy, collected, like someone who had moved on and found a clean new rhythm. But appearances can hide a lot. That calm face was only a cover. It was a role they wore so they could keep believing that stepping back was the right choice. They filled their days with tasks, noise, people, routines, distractions. Anything that could help them feel less. Anything that could keep them from turning inward for too long. But what is pushed down does not disappear. It waits. It grows quiet. Then one day it becomes too strong to ignore. That is what has been happening. Under the surface, an inner struggle has been growing heavier. Night after night, they tried to reason with their own heart. They told themselves distance was wise. They called silence safety. They named avoidance strength. Some of that came from fear. Some came from pride. Some came from not knowing how to hold feelings that felt too large. But here is the truth most people never say out loud. Sometimes a person steps away, not because they feel nothing, but because they feel too much. And being deeply seen by someone can be more frightening than being ignored by the world. As time passed, that mask became harder to carry. The version of themselves that acted guarded and unaffected started to feel false, even to them. They began to notice that life without you did not feel clean or peaceful the way they had hoped. It felt dimmer, quieter in the wrong way, like something essential was missing and nothing else could fully replace it. That is when a deeper awareness began to grow. They started to understand that what they had with you was not some passing pull or short-lived emotion. It touched parts of them that very few people ever reached. It made them feel exposed, yes, but also real. And once a person realizes a connection has touched their real self, they cannot return to treating it like it meant nothing. Their mind may still try to argue. Their habits may still try to hide. But the heart speaks differently when the bond is genuine. It comes back in the quiet. It returns before sleep. It shows up in small memories that once seemed unimportant. A look, a pause, a simple moment, a conversation they thought you had forgotten. Suddenly, those moments hold weight. Stay with this part, because it matters. The more they tried to move farther away, the more clearly they began to feel what they lost. Instead of weakening, the bond became louder in their absence. Instead of fading, it sharpened, and that change inside them has been building toward action. They started seeing you in the empty spaces of their day, in the silence after busy hours, in rooms full of people where they still felt alone, in the time before sleep when the mind stops performing and the truth begins to speak. That is when something shifted in a lasting way. They began to understand that what existed between you was not ordinary. It was not only attraction, not only comfort, not only familiarity. It was a deep emotional imprint. And that kind of imprint does not disappear because someone chooses distance for a while. It stays. It echoes. It follows them into the parts of life where they expected to feel free. At first, pride told them they could outlast the feeling. Pride said they were stronger than the pull. Pride said they could replace what they had with you and keep going without looking back. But pride always reaches a limit. There comes a point where pride meets reality. For them, that point is now. They are beginning to see that meeting you changed something permanent in the way they experience closeness, truth, and emotional safety. They cannot simply undo that. They cannot act like they were untouched. And even if they have not spoken it yet, they know it. Deep down, they know it. That is why the energy around this connection feels different lately. Something real is rising in them. Not performance, not illusion. Real feeling, real conflict, real awareness. And when awareness becomes that strong, silence starts to feel less like protection and more like loss. At the same time, something has also been changing inside you. Even if you still think about them, even if part of you still wonders what happens next, you are not standing in the same emotional place you were before. You have changed. You have become stronger in quiet ways. You have learned what it feels like to keep reaching towards someone who is not meeting you in the middle. You have felt the exhaustion of carrying too much of the emotional weight alone, and slowly, through long pauses and confusing moments, you started bringing your energy back to yourself. That shift is powerful. It may not have looked dramatic on the outside, but inside, it changed everything. There was a time when your peace depended too much on what they did, whether they answered, whether they appeared, whether they noticed, whether they moved closer. But eventually, you grew tired, not in a loud way, not with bitterness, just with truth. Your soul understood that your peace mattered too much to keep placing it in someone else's hands, so you turned inward, you stopped chasing, you stopped making yourself smaller, you stopped stretching past your own limits in the hope that maybe this time it would finally be enough. And when you made that shift, the energy between you transformed. This is important, so hear it clearly. The moment you stopped overreaching was the moment they could finally feel your absence in a real way. When someone is always sending energy outward, always waiting, always hoping, always watching, their presence can slowly become something others assume will remain. It begins to feel constant in the background, expected, available. But when that energy turns inward and becomes calm, grounded, and self-held, the lack of it becomes impossible to ignore. That is what this person is noticing now. They feel your distance differently because it no longer carries the same urgency. Your energy is not chasing them anymore. It is no longer asking for proof every day. It is no longer bending itself into silence while still waiting to be chosen. And strangely, that is exactly what has made their awareness of you grow stronger, because now they are left alone with their own feelings. They can no longer use your earlier effort as a shield to hide behind. They cannot lean on your patience while giving little back. They cannot assume the connection will wait in the same form forever. This has created a sense of urgency inside them. Time suddenly feels real. Loss suddenly feels possible. and people often do not understand the true value of something until they spend enough time living without it. That is where they are now, sitting with the weight of every delayed moment, every feeling they pushed aside, every choice made from fear instead of honesty. The distance they created to feel safe is no longer giving them peace. It is showing them exactly what they are at risk of losing. Do not skip this truth. Sometimes separation does not end a bond. Sometimes it reveals its depth. This time apart has changed both of you, but not in the same way. It helped you remember your own worth without needing their approval to confirm it. It forced them to experience life without your energy present in the same way as before. That is why what you are feeling now carries so much meaning. Hidden things are coming up. Old avoidance is breaking. What they miss is not just attention. It is not just the comfort of knowing you cared. They miss your depth, your presence, the feeling of being understood without explaining every layer. They miss the emotional safety they found near you, the kind that cannot be copied by noise, new faces, or short distractions. This has become steady inside them. It is no longer a passing mood, no longer a random memory. It moves through their daily life, whether they welcome it or not. There are ordinary moments when your memory suddenly takes over their full attention. A smell, a song, a place, a phrase, a certain time of evening. Things now carry your trace. At first, this made them uncomfortable because they wanted to believe they controlled their inner world. They wanted to decide when you entered their thoughts and when you did not. But deep truth does not obey those rules. The stronger the bond, the more naturally it returns. And now they are reaching the point where resisting the connection takes more energy than simply admitting it. The walls that once felt protective are beginning to feel like isolation. The silence that once seemed useful now feels heavy, and that heaviness is forcing them to think in a more honest way than before. From that honest place, they are looking back differently. They are remembering things with new eyes. Times when you tried to understand them while they stayed closed. Moments when you offered patience they did not fully value. Ways you held steady while they stayed guarded. These memories now carry a meaning they could not see before because they are finally looking without the same defenses. Real love often feels ordinary while it is there, familiar, quiet, easy to overlook. People do not always see its rare quality until it is gone from daily life. That is the lesson unfolding in them now. They are beginning to see how uncommon what you gave truly was. The honesty, the depth, the warmth, the calm, the way they could be near you without always needing a mask. They have searched for pieces of that feeling elsewhere and found only fragments, nothing complete, nothing that reached the same place. That only makes your importance clearer. There were nights when they tried hard to move on, only to have their thoughts return to you before the night was over. There were moments when they decided they were done, only to feel the pull become stronger right after. Every attempt to escape the truth only brought them closer to it. This is because what existed between you was never shallow. Something in them recognized something real in you. And when a person has been touched at that level, pretending becomes exhausting. So if you have felt a strange pressure in the silence, trust that it is not empty. A deeper process has been unfolding for longer than you may realize. And while all of this has been building in them, your own calm has become part of the turning point. You are no longer following them emotionally in the same way. You have become more settled inside yourself, less desperate, less dependent on their response for your balance. That change has not pushed them away. It has made your presence stronger in their awareness. When someone stops forcing love and returns to their center, their energy changes. It becomes still, clear, magnetic in a different way. You became calmer, and in that calm, they were left alone with the full truth of their own heart. Their thoughts keep circling back. Their feelings will not let them stay comfortably distant anymore. And that truth is unsettling for someone who has spent a long time trying to stay in control. Because once you fully admit how much someone means to you, you also have to face the risk that comes with honesty. You have to face openness, vulnerability, the chance of being seen, the chance of hearing an answer you cannot control. Fear has guided them for a long time. fear of getting hurt, fear of losing power, fear of being fully known and then left behind. But fear reaches a limit. Sooner or later, avoiding the truth becomes more painful than speaking it. That is the stage they are slowly moving toward now. The silence between you is no longer neutral for them. It has become emotionally loud. Every day of distance adds weight. Every attempt to push the feeling down creates even more pressure. And pressure, if it keeps building, always looks for a way out. This is why the changes you have been sensing lately have felt so intense. Something inside them is preparing for movement, not forced movement, not fake words, a real inner shift, the kind that quietly changes how a person sees their life, their choices, and the people who truly matter. They are beginning to understand that losing you would not only mean losing a person, it would mean losing a part of themselves that only this connection awakened. That kind of realization changes people deeply. Even if they have shown none of it yet, their heart is moving toward a moment when staying silent may no longer feel possible. They imagine reaching out. They replay possible conversations. They wonder what they would say. They wonder how you would respond. They wonder if it is already too late. Those questions keep circling. What once felt easy to avoid now feels urgent. There are moments when they come close to sending a message. Moments when the inner pressure rises so strongly that the silence almost breaks. Then fear steps in at the last second. But fear is losing ground. Slowly, steadily. Day by day, the emotional truth is becoming heavier than the comfort of old habits. The part of them that worked so hard to stay separate is starting to crack. And beneath all that resistance, they already know what is true. No one else has reached them the way you did. No one else brought that same mix of depth, peace, recognition, and honest emotional presence. That knowing is changing everything from the inside out. Clarity creates movement, even when that movement is not immediate. Emotional growth rarely happens in clean, straight lines. There are still fears to face, old habits to notice, stories to outgrow. But the deepest change has already begun. They are no longer standing outside this feeling deciding whether to enter it. They are inside it now. They feel it fully. And once a person reaches that point, silence becomes harder and harder to maintain. The old imbalance between you cannot continue in the same form forever. Something more truthful is trying to come forward. All the thinking, all the distance, all the inner pressure, it has created a moment where something must shift. Real emotion does not stay buried forever. It eventually finds a voice, a crack, a movement, a confession, an opening. The silence that once felt safe to them is now turning against them. The distance that seemed protective is beginning to feel lonelier than honesty would. This is often the final stage before real change. For a long time, they believed avoidance would make the connection fade on its own. They thought enough time would weaken it, enough space would calm it, enough distraction would erase it. But the opposite happened. Every attempt to disconnect showed them how deep the bond really was. They are now face to face with something they cannot easily dismiss. You changed them, not temporarily, not lightly, in a way that lasts. And once someone understands that, they cannot return to who they were before you entered their life. That realization has started an awakening in them. They are beginning to see that the peace they were trying to find was never going to come from running away. It was only ever going to come from honesty. And honesty is exactly what they have resisted the most. There are moments now when they feel very close to reaching out. The pressure builds. The silence starts to open. They imagine the first line. They imagine your voice. They imagine what could happen if they finally stop hiding. At the same time, the fear of losing you completely is becoming stronger than the fear of speaking. That is a huge change. Because once the fear of loss becomes bigger than the fear of vulnerability, the whole pattern starts to break. Their old walls are not as solid anymore. Their excuses do not comfort them like they once did. Their distractions are not working the same way. And beneath all of it, something genuine is unfolding. A turning point, a deep one. But here is the most important part, and I want you to hear it clearly. The greatest lesson in all of this was never only about whether they return or when they act. It was also about you remembering your value so fully that no silence could reduce it. The moment you stopped abandoning yourself while loving someone else, everything changed. You became stronger, more whole, more rooted. That matters no matter what happens next. Do not forget that while you wait for the outside world to catch up with what the inside world already knows, trust the quiet movement you have been feeling beneath the silence. You are not making it up. You are not foolish for sensing it. You are not weak for caring. There are two people standing near a truth now. One is learning that running does not bring peace. The other is learning that love should never require losing yourself. That is why this chapter feels so intense. It is not only about reunion, it is about transformation. It is about what both of you had to face in order to arrive at a more honest version of this connection. Whatever comes next, carry this truth with you. You are already becoming whole. Not because someone finally chooses you, not because a message arrives on a certain day, not because every question gets answered at once. You are becoming whole because you stopped leaving yourself behind. That kind of healing changes everything that follows. And sometimes the silence before something meaningful is not empty at all. Sometimes it is the space where the deepest changes are happening out of sight. So if your heart has been telling you that something is shifting, do not ignore it. Watch calmly, stay grounded, let what is real reveal itself. Do not chase, do not force. Let truth move in its own time. Because when a person finally understands what they almost lost, the next step often comes from them. And when it does, you will meet that moment not from fear, but from strength. There is also something else happening that you may not have fully noticed yet. The version of you that once waited in pain is fading. The version of you that once checked every sign, replayed every silence, and blamed yourself for what you could not control is no longer leading your heart the same way. A wiser part of you has stepped forward. A calmer voice inside you has started saying, enough, enough overgiving, enough guessing, enough trying to earn what should have been offered freely. That change has spiritual weight, emotional weight, real power. Because the moment you stop treating your worth like a question, the entire energy of the bond changes shape. And yes, they feel that shift too. They may not have words for it, but they feel the difference. They can sense that you are no longer standing in the same place, hoping from the same wounded space, carrying the same open ache. You are more centered now, more discerning, more aware of what love should feel like. That matters because if they do come forward, they will not be meeting the old version of you. They will be meeting someone clearer, someone stronger, someone who knows that love is not proven by suffering. Keep listening because this part is crucial. The next chapter is not only about whether they move, it is also about whether the connection can rise into a more honest form than before. And that depends on truth from both sides, not longing from only one. So, if the silence has felt heavy, if your intuition has been louder lately, if the pull has returned in strange, quiet moments, take a breath and trust what is unfolding without rushing it. Some changes happen like storms. Others happen like pressure under the earth before the ground finally shifts. This feels like that. Slow at first, invisible to most people, then undeniable. They are being brought closer to the truth by their own heart, their own memory, their own emptiness, and the clear realization that what they felt with you did not disappear just because they stepped back. At the same time, you are being brought closer to your own truth too. The truth that your peace matters. The truth that your value does not depend on someone else's timing. The truth that love is deepest when it can exist without self-betrayal. If they take the next step, let it be because they are ready to meet truth, not because you dragged them there. If they speak, let it be from awakening, not convenience. If they return, let it be with openness, not only emotion. And if that moment comes, you will know how to meet it. Not from desperation, not from fear of loss, but from the steady place you fought hard to rebuild inside yourself. That is your power now. That is your protection. And that is why, whatever happens next, you are no longer the one who will be broken by silence. You have already started becoming the person who can hold love and still keep your own soul.